Now, I'm sorry, everyone, and I know it's been a long day so far, but I'm afraid you've only got one more person to listen to, and in this case, it's me. Now, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm a minority, increasingly rare. Sometimes maligned, sometimes scorned, and articles are written about how I impact the environment, how I don't have to choose to do what I did, about how much happier I would be if I hadn't. I am a mother. When you have a child, no one tells you that your view of the universe will flip on its axis. You don't realize how much that you will love them or how afraid you will be for them as the world around you changes. And it changes beyond recognition. But it's reflected in a reality that we would soon see. There are 2 new migrants for every birth, the fastest population growth in the developed world. Kenya, Palestine, Iraq, these are the countries that have birth rates that would be needed to keep up with our immigration rate. Algeria, Syria, Egypt, not even their birth rates would keep up. And as our birth rates continue to drop, we're told that immigration is the only answer, as if there's nothing that we can do. But every industry, childcare, construction, we're told they'll immediately stop if we don't immigrate ever more of other people's children. As if we're unable to wipe our own butts. How could we ever survive without? Poland does, about to be higher income than England. England, where it is now seen as a subversive act to raise their own flag in the street. China does, India does, and Australia did. We thrived under the prosperity of nationalism when we made our own cars, relied on our neighbours, talked to the people around us. Paul Keating once said that Gough Whitlam changed Australia's sense of its own destiny as a paid-up member of the Anglosphere. Tell me, what was so bad about being a paid-up member of the Anglosphere? We had common heritage, we had common background, we had common values, and our children are not served better by being raised by people who will never share our culture, or even worse, who actively reject it. Australia, I have the answer. We have the recipes. We can pick up our own takeaway. The falsest thing about that episode of Bluey, where they go to the Chinese takeaway, is that they go pick up the food themselves. When was the last time that you did? We really can live without the succulent Chinese meals, I promise. We can look after our own. Shockingly, we could even raise our own children. Because the alternative, we need only look to Victoria. We see arguments made by machetes. A full 1% of our 2022 births had to be STD tested in the Victorian childcare scandal because we tolerate socially degenerate classes that are so clearly overrepresented 100-fold. My child has to look forward to competing with the world's poorest for jobs and the richest for housing, living in a culture that I no longer recognise. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to be easy. You're all brave by sitting here. But looking at this topic has been blown wide open recently, and more people are beginning to care. Because, statistically, only 12% of the migrants came with things from the skills point list. Could our government be so incompetent or so malicious that only 166 tradespeople came in under our permanent visas program last year? And just what is skilled? Real estate agents? Immigration agents. So you can immigrate immigrants to have immigration agents to immigrate more immigrants. You get it, you see it, it's a circle, right? The truth of Indian developers proposing to immigrate hundreds of thousands of workers into Australia is to build 1 million homes. Why do we want that? Now, I see a lot of arguments that blame Labor, but we have to turn the mirror around. This was a bipartisan action. In fact, our Conservative Party, our nationalist prime ministers are just as guilty, no matter their retrospective takes. Tony Abbott's migration program some months peaked higher than Julia Gillard's. Malcolm Turnbull immigrated more in total than Rudd. And who is our highest total immigrating prime minister of all time? John Winston Howard. Despite that lovely little reel doing the rounds right now, where he just sits there in his nice little office saying, you know, I was really just always so uncomfortable with multiculturalism. This goes beyond any one party or one organisation, but it should be a hard reflection on all of our Conservative side. We are all participating. We must look deeply at ourselves to examine where we have compromised our values for money, position or power. Our children and grandchildren have to live in this world after us. And if we don't change something, there's not going to be grandchildren. So how did the Conservatives get it so wrong? Why did no one do the basic fundamental research that it took the left-leaning Costamaris to finally inform us of that 85% figure? And then when Jacinta Price repeated his maths, she was thrown onto the back bench. Can we get the stats up here? They could have decided, as we advocate for now, a citizenship pause. Did the Liberal Party machine know that they were advocating for their own political extinction, despite spending $250 million in the last decade? Yes, a billion with a B. None of the right-wing institutions, none of the research firms, no strategy consultant in any corner city office ever say, hey guys, did you ever wonder how the immigrant demographic votes? Maybe before importing the entirety of the population of Tasmania per year, we could have thought about it. Well, someone did, but without a research white paper, she was ignored. Pauline Hanson saw it, and she said it, and parliamentarians walked out when she speaks. Well, now we're working on formalising the data. We run on 0.018% of the budget of the largest right-wing campaigners we rely on, but our basic primary research from June confirms what Pauline has been telling us since 1996. Labor first preferences go up 0.45% for every 1% increase in non-English speaking households. Now, there's still more to do to refine it and get this more precise, and we are working on it. Research is kind of the hobby side part of what we do, but the broad correlations are undeniable. Even more pronounced is the correlation with Indian ancestry, where Labor first preferences go up 0.51% for every 1% increase in households. Think basic primary research that right-wing think tanks never seem to do, supports Costamaris Redbridge Consulting's excellent and accurate polling data, and we think he's one of the most accurate. Doesn't really matter how fast he tried to walk it back on X last week, though. Australian Firebrand is more than just research. That's just a hobby. We're actually a campaigner. For people to care about politics, and right-wing America understands this well, you need to be stars with small and large orbits. We make messaging, not just ads. We're for something, not against everything. Small, but we're trying to have an outsized impact. We will touch issues that no other campaigner can touch. Not a 25% reduction in a failed immigration system, not even a pause. On Friday, the August jobs report came out. Negative 40,000 full-time jobs, adding 35,000 part-time jobs, net negative 5,000 jobs, while our immigration system added 20 to 25,000 new competitors for those jobs and for housing. Australian Firebrand will campaign for and against an immigration system that has failed to benefit Australians. Instead, Australia must have a remigration system that works to employ Australians, to benefit Australians, to house Australians. We will campaign against inequity and against a stacked deck. In 1996, the new member for Oxley asked a very simple question. Why do some Australians have so much more than others, and why does it seem to be by government mandate? We intend to be efficient and competent with messaging that cuts through beyond its scale and into editorials. We all must continue to be unafraid. We're looking for campaigns so effective that Jerome Laxar believes it's an assault on democracy. Yeah, you're right, Jerome, it isn't. Shame about all that money you're dumping into an inquiry. You wouldn't believe how little money we actually spent. It was insignificant, tiny. And of course, when you're making fun of the ridiculous, you mustn't forget to laugh. We really do have to reflect upon ourselves. Reflect seriously that if everything that's been going on continues, my daughter will own nothing, and she will be unhappy, and there will be no grandchildren to care for. And I won't let it happen. And the fact that you're even sitting here says neither will you. Sometimes the best people for the job are the ones who don't want to do it. If the death of Charlie Kirk showed us anything, it is that time is never unlimited, and there is not always a tomorrow to change what you could have done today. One of my favourite Australian authors said, "It is never too late to seek a new world." Thank you so much for coming today, Firebrands. Blaze a new trail, do something different, be loud, be offensive. Don't let them tell you to be quiet. If you're a part of the Anglosphere, say you are. Remember, you have an identity. We are who we are, and we shouldn't let them take it away from us. Thank you so much.